guys. Welcome to our June Marketing Council session on social media. So it's great to see everybody's faces. We had our league convention a couple weeks ago now, and we got to see several of you in person. For those of you who we weren't able to see in person, hello, it's nice to virtually see you here today. It's going to be a great session. We're really excited to have Rich Brooks here with us to talk about all of the knowledge he has in this space and to learn from Rich and his experience. So before I turn it over to him, I'm going to read his bio. Rich Brooks is founder and president of Flight New Media, a digital agency in Portland that's been in business for nearly 25 years. He's a nationally recognized speaker on entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and social media. He also founded the Agents of Change. It's an amazing conference and an annual conference and weekly podcast that focuses on search, social, and mobile marketing. He's also the author of The Lead Machine, the Small Business Guide to Digital Marketing. So we have quite the expert on task today. So we are so excited, Rich, that you're here. I know you've presented to our credit union marketers before, so we appreciate you joining us again. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to you. This session is being recorded, but as I always remind folks, if you've got questions, to put them up in the chat. This is your session. We want you to learn, ask questions, and engage, and also to eat, because I know many of you are spending your lunch breaks with us. So feel free to have your lunch while we listen along. So Rich, thank you.
Excited to be here today. It is great to be talking to all you credit union people again. So social media, a lot has changed in social media over the past few years, and what worked before won't necessarily work now. And while social media can still be a big part of your credit union's branding and marketing, you may need to upgrade your skill set and rethink your approach to social media if you want to succeed. My hope is that by the end of today's presentation, you'll have a good sense of how to leverage social media in 2022, what type of content is going to work for you on which platforms, when to post organically and when to advertise, how to manage your time effectively, and how to report back to your bosses to make sure they realize just how awesome you are at your job. So, when I first got into social media, which is a long time ago, just being on social media was a differentiator. If you were a financial institution using Twitter back in the day, those early adopters embraced you. If you posted something on Facebook, dozens, perhaps hundreds of people engaged with your post, and maybe several thousand actually saw it. But now, as we have a limited time and budget, as the demands on our jobs have grown, and as there's a lot more competition for attention from our members and potential members in the social media feeds, it bears asking, is social media still worth it? So what are the arguments against social media? Let me count the ways. First, social media doesn't drive website traffic. These, as you see on your screen right now, are just a few Google Analytics screen grabs from some different credit unions. And as you can see, whether they have very healthy site traffic or it's just a dribble of site traffic, social media only makes up a very tiny fraction of the overall traffic coming to the website. New privacy rules have limited targeting. As you probably heard or seen, the new privacy settings on iOS 14 have devastated Facebook's ability to target your potential members through advertising. In addition, privacy issues in general have made people wary of social media activity and engaging with brands on social media. Algorithms, the math that determines what people see, are decidedly anti-business. Back in the day, if you posted something as your credit union on Facebook, you knew that most of your members would see it. These days, most brands are lucky to get 1% of their fans to see their posts. Facebook algorithm promotes friends, family, and of course, ads ahead of your organic business posts. Basically, their algorithm is anti-business, except for their own business. Because of the algorithms, targeting issues, and more competition for attention in general, the ROI, or the return on investment on social media, isn't what it used to be. And let's face it, social media can be it can be very time intensive. I dread doing presentations about social media actually, because I know that rabbit hole all too well. I go to get a screen grab and suddenly I'm watching 5 hours of YouTube videos on carpentry or the history of comic books. Your mileage may vary. But it's not all doom and gloom, is it? No, there are plenty of arguments for making social media part of your overall marketing, and certainly plenty of counter arguments to the people from corporate who want to go back to easily trackable marketing, like sponsoring a road race or buying time on terrestrial radio. And of course, I kid, you can't measure those things at all. First of all, there are benefits beyond traffic. If social media is not driving traffic, well, maybe that's okay. There are other benefits to social media, such as branding, awareness, and engagement. Complaining about social media not driving traffic is like complaining about a dump truck not getting good gas mileage. That's not what it's built for. Remember, search sites like Google are built to direct people to other websites, like an information booth. Social media sites' business model is to keep you in a walled garden, like a casino. And all those privacy and targeting issues, while Facebook can no longer track us as accurately as it used to be, first of all, is that such a bad thing? And by understanding your audience and where they hang out online and the messages that they want to hear from you, you can overcome a lot of those issues. And those anti-business algorithms I mentioned earlier, well, that's mostly true on Facebook. On platforms like Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok, there aren't currently the same restrictions on a business's organic visibility. In fact, you don't even need to list your credit union as a business or set up a profile as a business account, although there are definitely advantages to doing it that way. And although people complain about the lower ROI from social media, again, maybe on meta companies like Facebook and Instagram, but that doesn't mean it's true on all social platforms. And as far as being a time suck, well, I've got a bunch of slides and tips coming up that should help you trim the time you spend on social media without giving up any of the benefits or rewards. Beyond all this, being on social media gives you credibility. Often people will visit a business's social media profile to get a better sense of the company, or in your case, the credit union. Social media can also act as a recruitment tool, showing a more personal side of your credit union to potential employees and how great it is to work there. Before we jump into more specifics, I want to share the way that I approach social media. I don't often see others look at it this way, but this is how I look at it, in that social media sites are either platforms or networks. Platforms are places where we have more control. Virtual soapboxes where we can educate, build credibility, or establish thought leadership. There's usually some form of interaction, often in the comments, but not always. Examples of social media platforms include blogging, podcasting, and video, but even webinars. And webinars can be very interactive. In these platforms, the focus is on us, or at least it starts with us, but it's up to us to attract an audience in the first place. Networks are what most people think of when they think of social media: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. We have less control here. However, our audience is already here, engaged in a giant networking party, so we don't have to work so hard to get them there. As you develop out your social media strategy, you'll want to determine which platforms and which networks are right for you. 5 to 10 years ago, social media was like the Wild West. There were no real rules and no one was really holding you to any sort of ROI, but those days are behind us. And although social media marketing is still pretty fluid and ever changing, there are best practices and there are expectations for ROI. The most important piece of advice I can give you is just to post with purpose, to know what your credit union's objectives are, what the expectations of the marketing department are, and how that social media activity fits into those overall goals. Getting clear on your objectives will help you when it's time to measure and report to your boss. For example, are you looking to build brand awareness? Is your goal to attract new members? Do you have a new offer that you want to get out there? Are you looking for new employees? Getting clear on what you want to accomplish with social media is the first and possibly the most important step in the entire process. I'll share some of Flight's methods to accomplishing this, both for us and our clients, in a bit. Another thing I want to talk about is the idea of organic posts and paid posts, or advertising. Originally, we could accomplish just about any social media marketing goal through organic or unpaid posts. As I've mentioned, those days are mostly behind us. If one of your objectives is driving traffic to your website or some other strong call to action, then it's likely you're going to need to advertise. I'm not saying you can't succeed on social media without advertising. Again, it depends on your objectives. I know plenty of businesses that only post to social media to prove they exist. They aren't looking to build their brand or audience, nor are they expecting to drive traffic or business from social media. They just want to show that they have a pulse if someone comes looking. And if that's all you need, and there's nothing wrong with that, then you certainly don't need to advertise. But remember, the business model for social media sites is to keep people on the platform, not to serve your needs. They only make money when people view or engage with ads. So they only want to give up eyeballs when an advertiser basically pays someone to leave the website. Every social media channel has an ad platform. If your credit union has business objectives and they expect social media to carry some of the load, then you're going to need to determine the appropriate channels, develop a budget, drive people to a landing page, and measure those results. While each platform has its own nuances when it comes to advertising, most of them are built around a similar framework of campaigns, ad groups, and ads. In general, campaigns are about objectives. You might have one campaign that's about member acquisition, and another one about home mortgages, and another one for car loans. Within campaigns are ad groups. This is often where audiences come to play. Audiences are the people that you're talking to. For example, you may have a campaign for member acquisition, right? So within that, you may have one ad group that targets college students, and another that targets young families, and another that targets people nearing retirement. Or you may have ad groups that target different geographies in the state if you're more spread out. Budgets are often set at the ad group level, but not always. Making up ad groups are the ads themselves. This is where you can run different ads to the same audience to determine which one runs best. So you might have the same ad, but maybe you're just trying different images. For a car loan, is it the photo of the car, or is it the photo of the person behind the wheel that actually drives more engagement and ultimately more applications? While each platform does have its own nuances when it comes to advertising, most of them are built and organized in a similar fashion. They all have some sort of ad management platform that will walk you through the process of creating ads. When setting up ad campaigns on social media platforms, the first step is almost always to establish your objectives. What should the ads do? Is this brand awareness, to gain followers on the platform? Are we looking to drive traffic to a landing page? Do we want loan applications? What you choose here may open or limit your options as you create the rest of your campaign. So it's important to start off by understanding what the objective for each campaign is. Once your objective is set, it's time to move on to creatives. Creatives are the words, the images, and the videos that make up the ads. It's imperative that your creative helps differentiate yourself from your competition and stand out from the platform itself. I recommend staying away from stock photography and videography if you can, and just hire a local professional photographer or videographer to create those images for you. Almost every ad platform allows you to create what are called A/B split tests, where you run the same ad, but maybe two different headlines or photos or calls to action to see which ones perform better. You can also test different landing pages or targeting options, all with the goal of improving your conversion rate and lowering your customer acquisition costs. Generally, WeFlight runs one ad for the first month to just get a benchmark for click-throughs and whatever KPI, key performance indicator, the client is interested in. And then we start doing experimentation in month 2. Different ads often require different landing pages, so consider that as well. For example, if one of your ads for a car loan shows a young woman behind the wheel and another shows a couple meeting with a credit union representative, best practice would be that you would use the same imagery. So you'd create 2 different landing pages and have each ad go to a landing page that has the same imagery on it. Next up is targeting. And targeting is where you try and determine who's going to see the ads. Depending on the platform, you can target based on demographics, geography, interest, job titles, household income, and a whole lot more. Further, you can target warm audiences, people who already know you, by putting a tracking pixel on your website or uploading email lists from your CRM. Each one of these is called an audience, and you can create a lookalike audience to reach even more qualified people. For example, you could upload a list of your members' emails and call that an audience on Facebook. Assuming they use the same email for Facebook as they do for your credit union, then you can target them with specific ads. You can also create what's called a lookalike audience, where Facebook will go out and find people similar to the people who are on that list or in that audience. That's called a lookalike audience. You'll still want to use filters to make sure that your ad is seen by the right people. For example, let's say you create that lookalike audience. You may want to add a geographic filter so that only people from your area are going to match up, who match up are going to see the ad. After all, a good candidate from Hawaii is not actually a good candidate, even if they match up with some of your current members. Side note, you can also set up your members as an audience that doesn't see a particular ad, such as a low rate for non-members as an enticement to join that you may not want your members to know about. The next step is bidding, and bidding is just managing your spend. Depending on the platform, you're likely to have many options here. You can pay based on how many people see your ad, or how many people engage with your ad, or click through to your website, or even convert at your website. Each one of these options generally is more expensive because it is more valuable to you as a business. In general, you can set limits to your budget by day or over the length of the campaign. I generally recommend having a daily limit so you don't blow through an entire month's worth of advertising on day one. One of the most popular questions that I get is, what is a good monthly budget for social media ads? And the answer is, it depends. I know, great answer, right? It depends on your budget. It depends on how aggressive you want to be. It depends on how competitive the space is. And it depends on how many campaigns you want to run at once. If you're running your own ads without the help of an outside agency, you can literally set the ad spend at whatever you feel comfortable with, $1 a day if you want to. When you're working with an outside agency, however, there's often a monthly minimum for an ad spend. As an example, we generally start our clients at $1,000 per month per platform. And there are two reasons for this. The first is that whether you're working with an outside agency or not, the more you spend, the faster the machine learning of the platform understands who's likely to click on or engage with your ad. So the machine learning or the platform itself gets smarter at showing the right ads to the right people, ultimately lowering your cost per engagement. The more you spend, the faster the AI learns and the faster your results improve. The second reason is that when you are working with an outside agency, they need to charge you some sort of management fee. If you're not spending enough on ad spend, it will be difficult to ever generate a positive ROI because you're going to have that monthly fee that you're responsible for. If you have a very small budget or are really interested in managing the whole process in-house, I recommend that you go the do-it-yourself route. However, if you do have the budget or you're short on workforce or experience, working with an outside agency certainly can get you up and running more quickly. Some agencies charge a flat fee, others charge a flat fee plus a percentage of ad spend, and others just charge a percentage of ad spend. If you're looking to drive traffic, attract new members, or get people applied for a loan, or really any strong call to action that takes people off site, off that social media site, then you're going to need what's called a landing page. Landing pages should be clear and simple and should continue the promise made in the ad. I talked about using the same imagery, for example, and also the same language. I also recommend removing the navigation from the landing page to avoid any distractions and letting the only options for the visitor be to move forward into the application form, as an example, or to click the back button. I found time and time again that that will improve your conversion rates. Reporting is critical, especially because now that we're talking about a tangible ad spend, not just employee time, which can sometimes be a little bit nebulous. All platforms can break down your ad performance and spend, providing unique insights into what's working and what's not working. If you were running an A/B split test, it can provide insight into which ad performed best. If you have Google Data Studio set up, and I strongly recommend that's something you look into, you can have these numbers automatically or manually pulled into your reports so that you compare customer acquisition costs across multiple platforms, as well as compared to paid and organic search. When it comes to reporting, tracking exactly what ad generated positive action is critical. And this is where something called UTM codes come in. It's a little geeky, but I'm going to talk more about that in a bit. Now, regardless of whether you're advertising or posting organically, or likely both, and despite the fact that most ad platforms are set up nearly identically, each platform attracts its own demographic. There's not a one size fits all when it comes to a social media channel. Although there are plenty of overlaps, you're likely going to get better results by treating each platform differently and behaving differently on each one. By understanding the demographics and expectations of each platform, you can better tailor your messages and get better ROI, whatever that might mean to you. So now I want to take a look at some of the platforms that credit unions are most likely to utilize and how to approach each one. Using Facebook, almost requirement. But that doesn't mean that it offers the same benefits that it did a year or 5 years ago. Yes, it's likely the widest range of age and demographics are here on Facebook, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily want to engage with you. And the algorithm, as I mentioned, is definitely working against your organic reach. Since the algorithm works against you, it's critical that you create posts that get naturally high engagement. That means posts that focus on people, your team or your members as appropriate. Whenever possible, tag the person in the post. Although when I say possible, consider that not everyone wants to be in your social media marketing. A team member may be more open to being tagged than a member would. If you can see in this example of Evergreen Credit Union, they are congratulating Zara E for winning, but they don't tag her in the post. And I think that's totally fine. They may not even be able to, depending on what her relationship with Evergreen is. And again, I would only do that if Zara had given them the thumbs up. Community involvement is a good call as well. Posts that show you writing an oversized check to a local charity, or sponsoring that road race, or doing a beach cleanup is always good press. And whenever you partner with a nonprofit or a business for that matter, you should be tagging them in your post. It alerts them and it can usually generate more engagement for that post. And excuse me, just in case there's someone on the call who's not clear on what tagging is, what I mean by that is, as you're creating the post and you click on the @ sign and then start writing out the person or business's name, depending on a few different factors, Facebook and just about any other social media platform will begin to provide a list of potential profiles or pages that you may be referencing. If you see that person or business in that list, click on it, and then that name becomes a link to that page or profile. This is what alerts them and can drive more engagement to your post. Okay, back to what works on Facebook. Facebook can be a good tool for recruitment. Many prospective hires will look at your social media, but especially your Facebook, to get a sense of who you really are. In fact, I recently interviewed a woman for my Agents of Change podcast who recommended that most business should either delete their Facebook account entirely or hand it over to HR. And I'm happy to share a link to that interview if you're interested in that. Although there are some people that disagree with me, they're wrong. No, although there are some people that disagree with me, I don't recommend that you use hashtags on Facebook. On other sites, it's a great tool for discovery, but on Facebook, it just looks like you cross-posted the same content from another site, which seems a little lazy to me. Not only that, it will likely drive people away from your post or page to somewhere else on Facebook, which probably is not what you're after. And finally, advertise, especially if you're looking to drive traffic to your website or some sort of landing page. Yes, it's true that it's harder and more expensive to reach people through Facebook ads these days. But I think because of the nature of credit unions business, I don't think it's going to be that bad. Plus, Facebook can still target geographically, which is important to most, if not all of you. In addition, you can upload your database of email addresses if you want to share a new offer with members or target their friends, target friends of those members. And if you don't believe me, if you think, oh no, Facebook's going great, look at the engagement on your organic posts. I know because I got an early list of who might be attending, and I went through a lot of your Facebook accounts, and engagement for organic posts is just very, very low. How many people are actually commenting or liking your typical post? And how many of those people are actually employees? Facebook may be nothing more than a necessary evil these days outside of its advertising platform, which has taken some pretty big hits over the past year. So I certainly wouldn't say don't use Facebook. I think it's almost required, but I just don't think you need to worry about it or expect as much out of it as you may have even a year ago. Instagram, as you likely know, is owned by Facebook, or specifically, it's owned by Meta, the company that now refers to it, or Facebook now calls itself Meta. So Meta is an umbrella term for both Facebook and Instagram. To succeed on Instagram, you're going to need high quality photos. Otherwise, it's likely that the only people liking your posts will be your employees. Eye-catching visuals is what is most important on Instagram. What I try and stay away from is stock photography and generic images of holidays where you wish the world a happy 4th of July or Merry Christmas. I mentioned that in general before, but it's especially true on Instagram. Try not to use any stock imagery on Instagram if you can at all avoid it. Beyond that, celebrate your people. I was having a conversation the other day with some other agency owners in a mastermind that I started, and we all agreed as we were sharing notes on our social media marketing for clients that the posts that do best for our clients are often just celebrating an employee's birthday or work anniversary. However, if those are the only posts you ever do, that gets old fast. So definitely mix it up with other types of content. Getting discovered on Instagram is really important too. And hashtags and reels are great for discovery. Hashtags are incredibly important on Instagram, as important on Instagram as they're unimportant on Facebook. Many people use hashtags for discovery, meaning they click on hashtags to see more related imagery. Although few random users are going to get excited about following a credit union's account, no offense, having the right mix of hashtags can bring more people to your account. I recommend using a mix of broad, narrow, and branded hashtags in each post. Broad might include hashtag Maine or hashtag credit union. Narrow might be hashtag home fuel loan or hashtag food pantry. And branded might be hashtag Casco FCU or hashtag you belong. Reels are also important these days as far as discovery goes. Meta is trying to steal business away from TikTok, so they're heavily promoting Reels on both Facebook and Instagram, even if you're not following the account. I've noticed on my own Instagram feed, and you probably have too, that lately I'm seeing a lot of Reels from companies or brands that I don't follow. Also, if you are planning or currently doing TikTok, which relies on vertical video, consider just repurposing that video for Reels on Instagram and Facebook for that matter. Captions are often overlooked on Instagram because we're just thinking about the images, but they can be incredibly powerful. If you have a story to tell, or if there's a story behind the photo, feel free to tell that story. Make sure there's a good hook on the first couple lines so people will click to read more. I also recommend using emojis. I mean, this is a thing throughout social media, but I'd say especially on Instagram. Using emojis, especially in those first couple of lines, is a good way of bringing people in and increasing the chances that they'll click that read more or like your photo. Did you know that people believe marketing message with emojis are more likely to be truthful? Let me just say that again. When people see an emoji in a marketing message, they are more likely to believe that message. I know humans are crazy like that, but recent research proved that to be true. I actually did a lot of research into emojis, which is a weird thing to say out loud, in marketing and communication, and I've done a deep dive blog post on it. And again, I'm happy to share that link if you're interested. Finally, advertising on this platform is helpful. First of all, the only way to link to your website is in your bio on Instagram. And most people don't go to your bio while they're scrolling the feed. However, ads allow your photos to be clickable and drive traffic to your website or landing page. The other big benefit to advertising on Instagram is that if you're already doing ads on Facebook, running Instagram ads takes almost no additional work. Click a button in the Facebook Business Manager and your ads are suddenly running on Instagram too. Twitter. What has become of you? Once my favorite social media platform by far, now it's mostly useful only if you're a celebrity. I still like Twitter though, and it can still serve a purpose. I would recommend approaching Twitter as if it's a broadcast platform, announcements, branch closings, holiday hours, press, etc. Twitter is also a place where people go to vent, so it can be a good platform to hear people's complaints and their rare compliments. Rather than monitor it day and night, you can set up an alert so that when somebody mentions your brand name or handle on Twitter, it can be texted to someone responsible for customer service. If you can only choose one social media network, it's not likely going to be Twitter. But if you do have the bandwidth or a social media platform like Hootsuite, adding Twitter to the mix isn't going to hurt you. Hashtags are also important on Twitter for discovery and other purposes. In fact, Twitter is where hashtags started. One thing that you can do to better manage your Twitter experience is to create one or more Twitter lists to improve the signal to noise ratio. When you create a list and you choose to look at that list, only tweets that match up with the list, whether it's because of the people tweeting or the words in the tweet, only those will appear there. So you get better signal to noise ratio. Maybe you would have a list of your members so you can follow, engage with them when they post, or have a list of the businesses you work with and retweet some of their content. All of this helps raise your profile and visibility on Twitter. LinkedIn is actually currently my favorite social media platform, which I know makes me kind of boring, right? LinkedIn is great if you have business offerings. It is the B2B platform. The first thing that I would likely do or likely recommend is optimize the profiles of any business bankers or executives on your team. That means branded headers, keyword-rich headlines, and descriptions in the about section, professional headshots, and a whole lot more. It means that they should be posting at least weekly, if not often. And let me just reiterate that, because I know that most people look at LinkedIn and they think B2B, they think companies, but LinkedIn is still a very human-driven platform. And what I mean by that is they're going to be more likely to connect with people from your credit union than the credit union itself. So optimizing profiles for key individuals on your team so that they can get found and connect with people that would want to do business with your credit union, that's really what you want to focus on. Either through your company's, your credit union's company page on LinkedIn, or as an individual, you should celebrate member businesses, which means following those businesses so that they appear in your feed, so when you know when to celebrate them. LinkedIn is also a great place for thought leadership. Executive team members, or really anyone on your team, should consider regularly posting to LinkedIn on items that are relevant for your audience. And while you can advertise on LinkedIn, and we run LinkedIn ads for many of our clients, it does tend to be more expensive than other platforms. It wouldn't be my first port of call for a credit union. When I think about LinkedIn for your credit union, I would recommend that you handle your own profile and your company page, posting at least once a week, but then get some of the other members of the team trained up on LinkedIn and active on their own. Although many people lump Pinterest in as a social media platform, the experts who spend a lot of time here consider it to be a discovery platform. And what they mean by that is that Pinterest isn't the kind of place where you go to catch up with friends or neighbors. It's a place where you get ideas for a project or an event or research something that you're interested in. As a credit union, you can use Pinterest to increase your overall online visibility. Many Pinterest boards end up ranking for the first page of Google for relevant searches. Unlike the platforms that we've talked about so far, the shelf life of a post on Pinterest is long. A Facebook post may only get visibility for a day or two, a tweet a few hours, but a good pin might continually get traffic for years to come. Evergreen content can do really well here. When you're creating pins, design them to be vertical, portrait style. The pins you see on the screen right now, they're actually obviously square. And the problem is that that means that they take up less real estate than if they were vertical. As with other platforms, Pinterest has its own ad platform, something they call promoted pins. What's nice about promoted pins and what makes them unique is that after you stop paying for the advertisement, they don't disappear. They just become organic posts, which can still drive traffic and visibility. YouTube I kind of think of as a platform rather than a network, but regardless, it's a great platform for any of your social media marketing, but it is, again, different than the other platforms we looked at so far. Like Pinterest, it's not a place where you go to catch up with friends, but there is a social component here in the form of comments on videos. However, as a credit union, that would not be my goal. I would use YouTube as a place to create long-form educational content, videos that educate your members on financial matters, on how to apply for a loan or how to balance their checkbooks. Is that still a thing? Do people still balance their checkbooks? I don't know. Looking at this example from North State FCU here, their tagline is your lifelong financial partner. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way. So what do your members need to know, or what do they need to hear from you as their lifelong financial partner? Create content that helps them, even when you don't have an offering for them, although start with the areas where you can help them with car loans, saving for college, what have you. North State does a better job than most of the credit unions that I found on YouTube. Most credit unions do nothing more than post the commercial they had made for local TV. No one watches those. Not even your president, not even the ad agency that made the video. There's no harm in posting it, but that's not going to get any engagement on YouTube. One thing to keep in mind with YouTube, skip one. One thing to keep in mind is that YouTube videos have long shelf lives. They can garner video views for years, especially if you're creating evergreen content like saving money for college or buying your first home. You can include links back to your website in the description or in links that can appear within your videos. Oh, hold on, I want to go back one, sorry. The last thing I want to mention is that YouTube has some very interesting ad options. Well, there are different types of ads. The one that I would focus on are the pre-roll ads. You've seen them if you've ever been on YouTube. You go to watch an ad and then you have to watch another, or you go to watch a video and you have to watch an ad beforehand. Sometimes you can skip after 5 seconds. Sometimes you need to watch the entire thing. You can place videos, your own videos right there. And if somebody skips after the first 5 seconds, but not, and within the first 30 seconds, you actually don't even have to pay for that. So you get visibility and brand recognition at no cost. You can choose where your pre-roll videos go. You can do it based on the topic of the video before. You can do it based on specific keywords the person's searching for, or you can show your pre-roll videos based on the video or the channel itself. So, and you can further target by geography. So maybe there's some video that you want to get in front of and you only want to show it to people in central Maine. Those are all options for you on the YouTube advertising platform. And YouTube ads are run through Google, which owns YouTube. All right. So there aren't a lot of credit unions active on TikTok, but that doesn't mean it's not a good platform. I'm guessing most of you know of TikTok and maybe have spent time there, but for the uninitiated, it's a platform of vertical short form videos, although it seems like every other week TikTok expands to allow even longer videos. The site is insanely addicting and one of the only social media platforms that's growing in popularity right now. Reddit is the only other one, but that has a much smaller user base. There was just an article I was reading in the Wall Street Journal talking about how TikTok is starting to attract people from all different age groups, but it's still mostly popular with Gen Z and millennials. If getting young members is part of your game plan, and I assume it is, there's a strong argument to start making videos for TikTok. One other nice benefit of TikTok is that a lot of the videos that get served up to you are geographically based. They're local. That's just part of the algorithm. So if you have a geographic area you cover, TikTok might naturally get shown to your local community. I would recommend creating educational content here too, but in bite-sized pieces. Maybe go to TikTok and do a search for some other credit unions to get a sense of the content they're creating. And judging by the likes, you might get a sense of what works and what doesn't work. One note I want to make here. If you create 1 or 2 videos on TikTok, don't expect anything in the way of results. All of these platforms reward consistency in one way or another. You probably can't make an honest assessment of whether a platform will be effective for you until you've been posting there regularly for at least 6 months. So don't get discouraged with very little interaction or when you only have a handful of posts. And again, this is true for any platform. Moving away from platform-specific advice, just talking about content in general. Educational content is always great. As a member-based organization, your member success is your success. So providing quality content that helps them reach their financial goals is always going to be beneficial to you and to them. That content can be in text, in images, or in video across any social media channel. You can also create blog posts, which is great for SEO, a whole different topic, and then promote those blog posts through social media. As mentioned before, putting the spotlight on members with their permission is always a great idea. This might be individuals, businesses, or organizations, and tag whenever possible. Team focus is also a great approach. Team members are usually willing to be tagged in social media, and their friends and family are likely to engage with those posts, then extending the reach. And finally, posts that show off your community involvement are key and get picked up and engaged with. As I mentioned earlier, time management is a serious issue when it comes to social media marketing. It's easy to get sucked into a time hole and have little or nothing to show for it at the end of the day. If you have other responsibilities, and really who doesn't, you'll want to manage the time you spend on social media each day, week, and month. And here are a few things that I have learned the hard way in how you can make that happen. First of all, one of the best ways to take control is to limit the number of channels your credit union is active on. I often recommend starting social media with just one platform and one network. That doesn't mean that you can't reserve your name on other platforms, but just that focus building engagement in just one or two places before spreading out and potentially diluting your visibility. If you haven't been active on a platform for a while, say Twitter, it might make sense to post a message there that tells people to follow you on other platforms where you are active. There was a time when social media gurus told us to post 3 times a day to Facebook if we actually wanted to gain traction there. Thankfully, those days are behind us. Optimal frequency is probably a myth and definitely ever changing, but for Facebook and Instagram, 2 to 3 posts a week is probably fine for your business. You could probably get away with just once. LinkedIn, just once a week. But honestly, you need to look at your own analytics and see if reducing or increasing frequency actually makes a difference. I guess what I'm suggesting is that one less social media post a week isn't going to kill your credit union, but it might free you up to spend your time in a more valuable way. Another thing is developing a calendar. Developing a calendar for social media is one of those things that feels like more work up front. It actually is. But once you've got one set up, it will greatly reduce the time you need to spend on social media. And you'll be able to free up all that psychic space that you've been using on, what am I going to post today? There are plenty of paid tools out there, but I recommend nothing more than a simple spreadsheet. We use Google Docs here at Flight because of the sharing capabilities. Another option is using a social media management tool, but I'm a little bit ambivalent about this recommendation. There are plenty of great social media management tools out there that allow you to pre-schedule posts, cross-post, repost, and do a whole lot more. And they provide great reporting. My team here at Flight uses Agora Pulse, although for a single credit union, you could easily use something like Hootsuite or Sprout Social. Here's why I'm a bit hesitant on this recommendation. One of the biggest benefits of a social media management tool is that you can pre-schedule your posts and have the platform post on your behalf. However, many social media channels devalue posts that come from third-party tools like a Hootsuite. That means that you're not going to get as much reach or engagement if you go through Hootsuite as you may if you posted directly to the platform itself. For me, if you're only managing one account, one credit union, the extra minute to copy and paste a post into multiple platforms is well worth the extra effort. In fact, I'd argue that you should be customizing each post for each platform anyway to avoid using, say, hashtags on Facebook and including them on other platforms, changing the language, and so on. So you're really customizing for each platform. Another thing that I have seen work in a bunch of different organizations over the years is assign the role of social media manager. Social media is an important part enough of your overall digital marketing that the work should be assigned to an individual or to a few individuals on your team. You should provide them with the number of hours of day per week, per month that they are going to be working on social media, that they're dedicated for this. And that work may include planning, content creation, responding to comments, competitive analysis, in other words, spying on other financial institutions' social media activity, and reporting. If you're using social media channels for communication, then someone needs to monitor them. That could be your social media person, or it could be a customer service rep. Now, no one likes cookie cutter designs, but everybody likes consistency. So go figure. I would recommend creating some templates. At Flight, we have brand guidelines handed down on a stone tablet, like for Moses. No, we have brand guidelines that have been handed down from our creative director, and basically we create templates based on these. He actually designed the first few, and then our marketing team can use them to create new content so that there's consistency in everything that we post. It makes the marketing team's life so much easier by just being able to grab a template, update it with new information or new post or new photo. Huge time saver. Another big thing is you've got to be ready to repurpose your content. Creating valuable content is hard. The best way to make the most of your content is to recycle and repurpose it. Most people will not see your post the first time you post it, or the second, or even the seventh. Now, I'm not suggesting you post the same post to Facebook every day. However, you can take a Facebook post and repurpose it for other platforms. You can take a blog post and grab the best quotes and share those on social media, or have your graphic designer turn it into an infographic and post that on Pinterest, or take the interview that your president did for a local podcast and turn that into a transcription that becomes a blog post, or create a video that explains some element of a blog post in a visible, demonstrable way. Add these options into your content calendar and you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. Also, consider making your evergreen content, well, evergreen. If you're not familiar with that term, I know I've used it a lot. It just means content that has a very long shelf life. For example, a photo of your team volunteering at the soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, not very evergreen. It's good for a week or two and maybe some sort of year-end recap. However, a post that shows people how they can improve their credit score might work for years before it needs to be updated. If you have some evergreen content, consider creating a social calendar or creating a social media post that drive people to a YouTube video or blog post or monthly for several years. All right, those are some ways to get the most out of the content that you create. And again, make the most of your time on social media. Before I wrap up and share some of Flight's favorite social media tools, I want to talk for a moment about reporting. As I referenced earlier, being able to show your work is making an impact on your credit union's bottom line, or at least helping them reach their objectives. It's a great method of job security, right? Plus, paying attention to these reports helps you continually improve your skills and get better results. One critical tool are UTM codes. What does UTM stand for? It really doesn't matter. But it does stand for Urchin Tracking Module, but you can now forget that. Just know that UTM codes are a social media manager's best friend. Rather than just dumping a link into your next social media post, you should create a UTM code that appends to the link. This will provide better data in your Google Analytics or in your Google Data Studio reports. Creating one, free and easy. There are plenty of online tools you can use, and the one you see on your screen right now is from Google. While the form has additional fields, I've stripped it down to its essentials. Here's how it works. First, put in the URL that you're trying to drive traffic to. Here, I want to drive traffic to the mythical page, mycreditunion.com/landing page. Next, I put in the campaign source, which I list as Facebook because I'm going to use this link on Facebook. The campaign medium I set as ad. If this was an organic post, I would have put an organic. If this was a story or a reel, I would have put that in as well, but this is for an ad, so I put in ad. The important thing here is just to be consistent. If you put ad here and then advertisement in a different UTM link, it will really muck up your reporting. So consistency is key. And lastly, I gave the campaign a name, Boat Loan. At the bottom, I now have a UTM link or a campaign URL. This is the link that I'm going to share in my Facebook ad. If you hate the way this looks, you can use a URL shortener like bit.ly to make it look better, but there is actually a better way to hide it. On organic posts, once you've put the URL into, say, a Facebook post and that preview image shows up, you can delete that link, but the image is still going to be linked over to where you want to drive that traffic, and it just looks more visually attractive to not have that clunky looking link there. And on paid ads, like in this example, you can usually specify both a display URL, in other words, the URL you're going to show off, as well as the true URL, or hide the URL entirely, just like in the organic post. Then when you go into your Google Analytics or your Google Data Studio, you can now get a better sense of where not just the most traffic is coming from, but where the most valuable or highest performing traffic is coming from. In this case, I blurred out part of the names of the campaigns and the revenue, but you can get a sense of how valuable this would be if you're trying to get prospective members to visit a given page or sign up for something, or having current members start the process of applying for a loan and being able to tie that back to, was it a Facebook ad or an email newsletter or a Google search ad that drove that traffic? So you can kind of see that on the screen right now. It breaks it down by campaigns. We could also break it down by source or medium, and we can see how many users it drove. And in this case, we can actually even see the e-commerce conversion rates and the actual revenue it created. That is insanely valuable information for you. All right, so I polled my marketing team's go-to tools for social media marketing, and here's what they suggested for you. Canva. Canva is their go-to tool for design. I mentioned it earlier. It's easier and more approachable than Photoshop. It's the perfect tool for a social media manager. You can also put your brand guidelines into Canva so that your team knows exactly which fonts and which colors to use with different templates. We use Agora Pulse for our social media management. This may be more tool than you need if you're managing, like I said, just one credit union. But if you are, take a look at Hootsuite or Social Sprout as good alternatives. And yes, there are plenty of great social media management and planning platforms out there. But as I mentioned, we do use Agora Pulse, but we basically just use spreadsheets. We use Google Docs because it was built for sharing with other people. It's easy to create templates, and that allows us to roll out the next month or next quarter's content. I added Yoast SEO. Yes, it's called Yoast SEO, but it has some nice social media tools as well. If your website is built on WordPress, then you should be running the Yoast SEO plugin. Besides the SEO benefits, which I'm happy to discuss at another point, it helps with your social media posts. When somebody goes to share your post on different social media platforms, here you can see, you can decide which image is going to be shared, shown when it does get shared. And you can even change the default title and description for Facebook and other platforms if you wish. Sometimes the title that's really good for SEO isn't really attractive for social media. And this tool gives you the opportunity to overwrite it when somebody shares it. Keeping on the idea of sharing blog posts on social media, have you ever created a blog post and then when you go to share it on social media, it looks all janky? Well, you can preview how your post will look by using Post Inspector tools. I have Facebook and LinkedIn Post Inspector tools as bookmarks on my browser, and I always check how things are going to look before I share a post. If I don't like the way it looks, then I can tweak the post and then re-scrape the post until it looks as I intended, and then I go ahead and share it. Lingo Jam. Well, have you ever seen someone write in a font on social media and it doesn't look like the regular typical font on a platform? Or maybe you want to include some bold or italicized text, but LinkedIn won't let you? Well, Lingo Jam is one of the many tools out there that will let you paste in your message, take a look on the left-hand side, and then grab some fancy text version, take a look on the right-hand side, to copy and paste into your social media platform of choice. I honestly don't know how it works, but it does. Just don't overdo it. Think of it like hot sauce. And finally, I'm sure all of you have Google Analytics set up and check it regularly, right? Crickets, whatever. Okay. I'm sure you all know that Google Analytics is going away, right? That starting next July, it will no longer collect any new data and you'll need to use GA4, the new non-compatible version of Google Analytics. If this is news to you, I strongly recommend you follow Flight as we've got a slew of blog posts scheduled that will help you with the transition to GA4. But the other piece of the puzzle is setting up Google Data Studio, or GDS. GDS is like Google Analytics, but way more powerful. First of all, once you set it up, it's much more user-friendly. Rather than reams of data you have to slog through, it's visually inviting and dashboard-driven. You only see the reports you want to see, and they're still interactive. But more than that, it reports on more than just your website. Yeah, it takes analytic information from Google Analytics and GA4, but it can also pull in data from your social media ads, from Facebook, from Twitter, from your email marketing campaigns. Basically, anything that can go into a spreadsheet can be added automatically or manually into your Google Data Studio. And I just want to wrap up with a few bonus tips. In the last few minutes, I didn't know where to put them, but these are for the social links that appear on all of your websites. First up, move your social media buttons to the bottom of the page. The goal is to drive traffic from social media to your website, not the other way around. Why would you put an exit sign at the top of your website after you worked so hard to get people to your site? It just doesn't make sense. Secondly, those buttons should open up in new tabs. At least this way, your website is still one of the tabs people can navigate back to sometime in the future. And lastly, remove all inactive sites. I visited a few Twitter and YouTube accounts from buttons on home pages for credit unions when I was doing this research that hadn't been updated since the Bush administration. And I mean the first George Bush. I even saw a few credit unions that still have links to Google+, and that hasn't been a thing for years. That just makes it look like you're not paying attention. So this has been a lot of content, and I know the Maine Credit Union League has been recording this, so of course you can go back and watch it again. However, a few things I want you to take away with you and put to immediate use. Get clear on your objectives. Post with purpose. This isn't social media. It's social media marketing, and that means you should be doing it with a clear end goal. Be human. I didn't say this in so many words before, but when I say put the focus on your members, your team, and your community, that's what I'm talking about. You want your post to feel native to the platforms you're engaging on. Advertise as necessary. If you're looking to drive traffic or stand out in a competitive space, advertising is necessary. Get clear on your objectives, know your targeted audience, get a budget from the higher ups, experiment, and drive people to a landing page. And finally, track your KPIs. Between UTM codes, Google Analytics, and Google Data Studio, you have everything you need to prove that social media is worthwhile and you're doing a great job at it. That's what I got for today. So thank you very much, everybody. And with 30 seconds to spare, but I'll stick around for questions because I have some time.
That is fantastic, Rich. Thank you so much. I've got notes for myself because it's just been so valuable, and I have already received requests to get you back for a further deep dive. So
sounds good. And if necessary, I would bring my team that's actually much smarter than I am. I'm just the one who likes to get on screen. So there you go.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. And I also would love to take you up on that offer to share the Wall Street Journal article about the emojis. Anything that I can foster for this team, I'd be glad to. So
yeah, I'll pull those together and send them over to you.
Awesome. With that said, I know it's 1 o'clock. Is there anybody that would like to ask Rich a quick question, either through the chat or take yourselves off mute?
Rich, I have a quick question that may pop up with other people here, but how important is it to respond to social media comments when you get them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever?
It's a great question. And I guess it is contextual. Like if you post something and you get 1,000 congratulations or positive messages, obviously you don't need to respond to each one, but any negative message I would definitely respond to. And my general rule of thumb when it comes to responding to people online from a business standpoint, when they're unhappy, is that you acknowledge that they are unhappy. And basically you do everything you can to get that conversation off of social media. So if somebody complained about the Flight New Media Credit Union, I would say, oh, that's not normally how we do business. I would love to learn more. Here's my personal email or here's my direct line. Let's talk about it. And if that person decides to keep it public, then I would just basically disengage with them. But if they do come to me, then I'm going to talk to them offline. What I don't want to do is start a fight online because we never look good when that happens. And no matter how awesome our credit union is, there's always going to be times when somebody's not happy with everything we do, whether it's through a misunderstanding or what the case is. So engage with people who engage as much as you can, always engage with negative comments, but take those comments offline as quickly as possible.
Others from the group? Double check the chat. All right, lots of great information. Again, this session is recorded and we will get this out to everyone as a follow-up. And Rich, I will certainly be in touch and look forward to your information. And again, thank you. This was incredibly helpful to me. So I hope it was helpful to everybody who joined us today. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Thank you for everybody who stuck around for the full hour. Definitely appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. You guys all take care and have a great rest of your week.